Okay, I will call our village board meeting for August 2nd, 2021 to order. Roll call, please.
Nella Fresh.
Here.
Bill Willis.
Here.
Bill Random.
Here.
Chris Elner.
Here.
Aaron Moran. Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Gary Hertzberg.
Here.
Okay, first we have confirmation of open meeting compliance, public postings, official notices, online availability. Caitlin.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on July 29th. The final agenda was posted at all three village posting locations on Wednesday, July 28th, and the final agenda and packet was made available online on July 28th.
Perfect, thank you. Next we have consent agenda. Would anybody like anything pulled, or I'd look for a motion?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion by Phil Willems, second by Bill Random. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have public comment for anyone who'd like to make any comments on any items that are on or off the agenda for this evening. Now's your chance to do so. Do we have?
First one is Mary Heinebecker, 306 West 3rd Street.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
Mary Heinebecker, 306 West 3rd Street. Today, on Dane County Neighbors Helping Neighbors, which has 15,900 members, a public post caught my eye about a Waunakee rental unit. The poster asked who to contact in Waunakee about an issue with cockroaches in an apartment complex here in the village. The poster called our building inspector to ask for an inspection. They were told by the inspector that our department does not deal with landlord-renter issues. Perhaps it is time, as Waunakee continues to grow, for the inspector's department to broaden their jobs. Who are people in Waunakee to call? There is nobody right now. I know of another person who had issues with a walkway about 6 or 7 months ago going from the sidewalk up to their complex where the walk had dropped about 2 inches and there was tripping issues, and our inspector told that person the same issue. I just think that there needs to be some place for people to go when there's issues with apartment complex in town. We have a number of them, and many of them are getting older. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Ashmore, 114 South Street.
Hi, it's nice to see everybody back in person. My comments related to the possibility of going into closed session for the Cohen Esri Development Group request for amending the development agreement. I'm asking that you consider staying in open session. It's always a may go into closed session. You're not required to go into closed session. And since workforce housing is kind of a controversial issue, I think that if it's done openly, it goes a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no other comments of the audience. I have a written comment to read.
Go ahead.
From Scott Russell, our EMS director. Waunakee Village Board, while we sit here in person excited that things are getting back to a new normal, I want to take a quick moment to implore everyone not to get their guard down. The Delta variant of COVID-19 is starting to become very prevalent in Dane County, and specifically in the village of Waunakee and its close neighbors. First and foremost, if you have not been vaccinated, urge you to do so. While the Delta variant has shown it can break through the vaccines, the noted symptoms have been less significant in those who have had already been vaccinated versus those who have not. With this breakthrough capability, the spread of the Delta variant is moving very quickly, spreading between people at the same rate as the common cold or chickenpox. Right now, the best tools we have to combat the spread are social distancing and wearing face coverings. While it is still just a recommendation of the CDC and Public Health of Madison-Dane County, please strongly consider donning masks while inside and maintaining social distancing when possible. We all remember all too well what the last year did to us physically, emotionally, and the toll it took on our families and businesses. We do not want to end up with all the mandates we've had just a few short months ago, and the only way to avoid this is to stop the spread of the variant. If the spread does not slow down, we will undoubtedly start seeing the mandates come back. If we all do our part, we can avoid the rest of 2021 being a repeat of 2020. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your summer and stay safe. Sincerely, Scott Russell, Service Director, Waunakee Area EMS.
Okay. Any others? Todd?
Been trying to re-up the habit of giving good news about village events or village staff. This one is about Caitlin, So you have your municipality magazine, and if you flip open the very back cover, page 36, there's a congratulatory corner there. So Kaylin was elected president of the Wisconsin City Management Association, and for the first time ever, yes. And for the first time ever, the three elected members of the officer board for WCMA are all female managers. So I'm pleased to hear that too. So congrats,
Thank you.
Caitlin.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Caitlin. Okay, any others? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. First item we have, under new business, discuss and take action on possible amendment to development agreement for affordable housing project at 701, 705 West Main Street as requested by Cohen Esri Development Group. Brian, do you want to give any background before?
Sure, yeah, I can give background, although it is gonna be my recommendation that we do go into closed session. So we have our development agreement with Cohen Esri, and that was executed in mid-May. And our agreement contains what is standard language, which says which says if there's a mortgage on the property, the mortgagee needs to consent to our agreement. And so essentially there's two ways that we approach this, is either our agreements get recorded first and the mortgages get recorded second, in which case then the mortgages are subject to our agreement, or if the mortgage gets recorded first and then our agreement gets recorded, then the lender has to sign our consent document. And the whole idea is we need our agreements to run with the land so that if they're foreclosed upon, whoever acquires the property after the foreclosure is still subject to the terms and conditions of the agreement. And so this is a standard process for us. It happens in all developments. About 10 days to 2 weeks ago, I got contacted by the attorney for Cohen Esri and also the attorney for one of the lenders on the property, Great Southern Bank. So there's going to be two mortgages on the property. One is going to be this Great Southern Bank. The other is going to be a mortgage associated with an entity in Dane County that's also providing some funding. There's not an issue with that entity. They've already signed our consent document. But with respect to this Great Southern Bank, they told us, look, we can sign your consent document, but we need to add language to it that, I'm not going to get into the legalese, but essentially says, the consent does not apply to section 3C of your agreement. Well, 3C of the agreement is pretty significant language because it talks about the fact that the project needs to be for affordable housing. It needs to be maintained as affordable housing. And then I started having communications with them, and I sent them an email that I have since provided to you all, where I said, hey, I'm pretty sure this is what your language says, and they agreed with it. And essentially what, in layman's term, it says, if they foreclosed upon the property, then there would be no requirement to have affordable housing there anymore, which I've explained to them via email. That's very significant to the board. The reason why the village provided the funding to this project was because it wanted affordable housing. And in fact, I'm not even sure if the village board would have approved market rate housing at this location. I mean, affordable housing was very important. So we had a number of communications back and forth, and ultimately where it was left, and my understanding is this is where it's at, is Great Southern Bank has signed two consent documents, because I believe that Cohen Esri last week acquired the property, and I think that they may even have started with the project, because I believe through their WIDA funding, they had a requirement that they had to start the project by August 1st. So my understanding is at the closing company right now, there are two consent documents that have been signed by Great Southern Bank. One is the one that I drafted that says that they're going to consent to our entire agreement. The other is the one that they redlined that says they'll consent to our agreement except for this section 3C. So how I left it with their communications with them was they said they were going to do that. Then they asked me to come to the village board to talk to the village board about whether or not the village would be willing to agree to the consent document that they prepared, which again would say that if they foreclose upon the property, it doesn't have to remain affordable housing. So I guess I kind of want to talk to you in closed session about different alternatives that we may have. I mean, you could say yes to them, you could say no to them, and there's potentially some middle ground. I said that we would have this conversation in good faith. I was very upfront with the attorney for Great Southern Break. I said, I doubt that the village board will accept your consent document. I think that the board's gonna stick with our consent document, but, that's where we're at. The reason I want to go into closed session is, quite frankly, I don't get to sit in their boardroom, whether it's Cohen Esri or the bank, when they have these discussions with their clients about what different options they may want to consider. And if we sit here in open session and talk about that, they have access to all of the attorney-client information that I don't have any access to. So, I mean, I'm certainly willing to try to answer any questions that you might have in open session, but I do want to talk about kind of different alternatives in closed session. I would expect that we would reconvene into open session and make a statement as to the path that we want to follow after that.
Okay, that said, board members, do you have any questions for Brian at this time? Okay, seeing none, then Brian's made the recommendation to go into closed
Make a
session.
motion to go in closed session.
So we have a motion by Gary Hertzberg
We need to read the,
first.
yeah,
Read
I'd
that
read it
first.
and then have a,
All right. The village board may convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin statute 19.851E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the vesting of public funds or conducting other specified public business. Whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, the village board may reconvene in open session and discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. So,
Yes.
motion by
Move to
Gary
go in
Hertzberg, do we
closed
have a
session.
second?
I'll second.
Second by Aaron Moran. Roll call vote, please.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Bill Willems,
Yes.
Bill Ram,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Aaron Moran. Yes. Sam Kaufman.
Yes.
Gary Hertzberg.
Yes.
You're in closed session.
Okay, we are back in open session. It is 6:28. And Brian,
okay, so let me just try to summarize for everyone. So what we did is we had a good discussion. We discussed some different alternatives. Essentially, we have the consent document that the village typically uses. We have the consent document that was redlined by the lender. And then so we discussed those two options, and then we discussed potentially some different alternatives. But I think where the village board has landed is, and this is information that has been shared with the lender previously. First of all, it's very important that, the money that is being utilized to help fund the Cohen Esri project pursuant to the village's development agreement by Wisconsin TIF law requires the money to be used for affordable housing. And so it becomes very problematic for the village if all of a sudden that project is foreclosed upon and the lender that forecloses upon the property is no longer required to have affordable housing on the property. That creates a legal issue from us under Wisconsin statutes. It also then comes back to the fact that the village, along with Cohen Esri, has spent considerable time working through this project with the understanding that it would be for affordable housing, and that is what the village wanted for this property. And so I think primarily based on those two criteria, I believe it's the village board's position that it wants to remain with the consent document that the village prepared, but I also think it's appropriate in light of the request that was made by the lender for the board to actually make a motion on that. So my recommended motion would be motion to maintain the consent language as prepared by the village of Waunakee.
okay, do we have that motion?
Right here.
Motion by Bill Random. Do we have a second? Second by Sam Kaufman. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, no. I got him. You were hesitating.
Motion by Gary Hertzberg to adjourn. Do we have a
I
second?
begin to think they don't like it here.
Second by Aaron Moran. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, everybody.
Wow.
Thanks, Doc.